Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the sit rep or summary for the Ukraine war for the day of 197th, the 8th of September. This one will, the information here will also contain information from the 9th of September, as far as the information that I've seen up to the point of the start of this summary, so of this recording. So let's start off with some statement from Zelenskyy. So Zelenskyy yesterday reported that they have liberated more than 1,000 square kilometers of territory. I read what he said. As part of the ongoing defensive operations, our heroes, which is the Ukrainian forces, have liberated dozens of settlements, and this movement continued. And there were new results, and since September the 1st, they have more than 1,000 square kilometers of territory has been liberated, and he's grateful to the Ukrainian soldiers fighting for the freedom of their people, and thank you to the people that fought in all the different fronts and contributed to the victory. So that is basically the statement. And just for those that did not watch the previous summaries, the Belarusian army is conducting military exercise just around 10-20 kilometers away from the entire Ukrainian Belarus front line. This exercise reportedly will continue up to September 14th, and is likely to be the Belarusian contribution to the Russian war effort, just to distract the Ukrainian forces from diverting resources and manpower away from the Belarus-Ukraine front's border. So according to the Ukraine Defense Ministry, there's another shutdown of Russian aviation equipment. Ka-52 helicopter has been shot down over the past 24 hours. So moving on to the southern front, where the Ukrainian Kherson offensive is ongoing, and despite, because on the Kharkiv region, the Balaklia front or Balaklia offensive, or some other analysts, they call it the Kharkiv offensive, have taken the spotlight. However, the Kherson offensive is actually still ongoing, and let me go through what's happening over here at the southern front. At the Mykolaiv Front, bombardments continue as the Russians lost the previous positions of Ternovi, Podi, and Blahodatne. There is still there's no updates regarding what the Russians going to do here. They're probably going to hold the position around here. There is no updates in the Snihuivka region. There is I think photo or video coming out from Snihuivka that confirms that it's still under Russian control. Over at the Davydiv Brid Front, I forgot to draw this one forward. The Ukrainian forces have captured Chkalove, and this is information coming from the pro-Russian source Ryba. Let me pull out a bit. Okay, so they say that the separate foot groups, basically infantry, have entered the Chkalovskoye and the Belarus-Ukraine highway. So basically, I believe it's this highway here, but this one is so unclear, so not sure where's the highway that they're referring to. And as such, they by principle also have captured Chkalove. So the Ukrainian forces also has recaptured Kostromka. Previously, the Russians have launched a counter-offensive and they have taken Kostromka, but it was disputed by the Ukraine Defense Ministry with their bombardment reports. There is a Russian offensive or attack against the Ukrainian position at Bezimenne. So this is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Otherwise, there is reinforcement reported crossing the river at Andriivka. 4 companies of infantry has been transferred to the front, crossing the river pretty relaxingly, despite there is always active threat of Russian Air Force airstrikes. So this is probably linked to the capture of Chkalove, as the Ukrainians need more troops in this beachhead or bridgehead in order to secure these fronts and capture more grounds. Without more troops, you can't recapture more grounds. So this is what happened. Moving on to the Kryvyi Rih Front. At the Kryvyi Rih Front, a new development had happened. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense have claimed control over Novovoskresenske. This is come from this bombardment report, where they mention Novovoskresenske, and this actually puts into question if the Ukrainians actually have traveled to this location. So the pro-Russian crowd tend to say that no, do not trust the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. However, these are all indications, possible indications that the front line is actually different from our understanding based on pro-Russian sources. So this is not looking good. As the if the Ukrainian bombardment report are to be trusted, the Ukrainians have captured more ground than we have understood. So moving on to Zaporizhzhia Line, there is still bombardment at Enerhodar, but it's not really important now. I think I also saw rumors that the IAEA is going to demand Russia to withdraw from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I doubt that's going to happen. So it's just a draft. They haven't officially announced this resolution just yet at the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association. So at the Zaporizhzhia Line, there is no new updates regarding just bombardments, which I don't think you are interested in knowing what was bombarded, and it's just bombardment. And the Ukrainians continue to claim bombardments at Pervomaiske and Novopil, which was claimed by the pro-Russian source Ryba as to be under Russian control. So the dispute continue, and that's all from the Zaporizhzhia Line. And moving on to the Donetsk Front. At the Donetsk Front, the cancer growth has not grown further at this point. It grows over only at the Kryvyi Rih Front. This blob of tumor have reached pretty far to Heavenivka, and if this is the Ukrainian line, then should they, if this is the actual front line, if the Ukrainians actually start to move towards the river, and perhaps especially at Staromelinivka, capturing of this ground, this area, which is actually a major crossing and transport hub, this will actually threaten the entire front line over here at the Velika Novovoskresenske region. And but tentatively, we have no evidence that this is the case. However, we cannot ignore this possibility that this might actually be true. At the Pisky region, fighting continues for Pervomaiske. They're still moving forward. There are some rumors of Russian forces or DPR forces capturing some small geographical or buildings kind of thing, which is not very important because that's very too tactical. We are only looking mostly on the strategic view, which is not so important. There is fighting reported at Kamyanka. So this is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, where they have claimed control over Kamyanka. This has not been acknowledged by any pro-Russian sources. However, I think this is pretty credible that I feel that the Ukrainians might be actually having control over Kamyanka. There are some Ukrainian bombardments over some of the Donetsk location and cities, but not very important. Moving on to the Bakhmut front. So there's nothing else on the Donetsk front that is worth mentioning. And at the Bakhmut front, the Russians continue to attack Mayorsk. They are still trying very hard to capture this railway station region and the small little town here. And capturing of these positions would probably allow the Russians to use the railway track to transport additional troops and resources over to this area. Of course, they will be highly vulnerable to artillery strikes and MLRS strike, multiple launch rocket system strike. So basically, but it is still infrastructure that is worth capturing. The this is probably wrong color, sorry. The Russian offensive from Koderma towards Mykolaivka Druha continues. However, there is no news from the pro-Russian side about this. It's only reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. It looks like all the pro-Russian sources are very caught up by what is happening over at the Kharkiv Oblast, particularly talking about the Mykolaiv Front. So the entire Bakhmut front seems to be neglected in a sense. There's no reports coming out from this region from the pro-Russian sources, and Russian Ministry of Defense reports tend to be rather useless nowadays for us to map things. So there is just bombardment reports, and otherwise there is no other active ground offensive. I believe this is also a direct consequence to the situation at the Mykolaiv Front, as all the resources is now focused at plugging the hole that is exploited by the Ukrainian forces. So there might be a case where there is massive redeployments of forces, and there might be also important need for the Russian forces around this region, especially at this monkey head here, or this ape head here, that they need to hold positions and not cause another breach of the defense line, causing a irreparable situation for the Russian forces. At the Siversk Front, there is no ground offensive. The fighting at Kryvyi is not reported over the past 24 hours already. Looks like the Russian offensive at Kryvyi is given up again. However, there is report that there's a massing of Ukrainian forces at Serebryanka. At Serebryanka, according to Boris Rosen, basically Colonel Kasat, on the Telegram channel, which is a pro-Russian source, they reported at up to 2,500 troops, including military equipments like tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, self-propelled guns. Basically, is a full battalion, I believe. Might be a brigade. So I'm kind of not so sure about the numbers. So this massive force has been bombarded by Russian Air Force for the past 2 days apparently, and this force looks very threatening. If you look at the geography here in the situation, the bridge at Zaporizhzhia, this is actually a railway bridge. This cannot really be used by any tanks, which means that these forces here is likely to do a crossing, pontoon crossing, and they is likely to cross into the Luhansk Oblast and actually launch a counter-offensive in the direction of Crimea, or they could actually move towards Zaporizhzhia and cut off reinforcement towards Lyman. This is also possible. So in a lesser sense, they might actually take Dobrova and cut the road from Crimea to Toretsk, but that will actually open themselves to pincer from two sides. But assuming that there's actually even Russian troops in these cities, which I don't think there are. So the troops, the Russian numbers of troops is very sparse in most areas. So even if there's a weak spot in the Ukrainian lines, the Russians cannot really exploit it because they don't really have the number of troops to actually do it. So, but this force here is something to look out for. I do not think they will actually go towards Lysychansk. Maybe breakthrough at below Horivka. I don't think that is meaningful for the Ukrainian forces. I think that the priority now for the Ukrainian forces is actually to wipe out the entire Eastern Front. So I believe the crossing is most likely to be the objective. However, we have to take note that there is a bombardment at Serebryanka. This is reported by the Ukraine Defense Ministry, which corroborates with the information that coming out from this pro-Russian source. So previously there was no report of shelling at Serebryanka. So this is reported to have shelled over the past 24 hours. verifying this information, and but I don't think it would be enough to take out 2,500 troops, which means that this is definitely still a fighting force that is likely to be used by the Ukrainian forces to continue to put pressure. Currently, the Russian forces is now streaming towards the front line, which means that by the time the Russian forces are all committed, this force is likely to cross the river and cause havoc in the rear of the Russian positions. Over at the Slovyansk Front, or the Lyman Front, depending on how you want to call it, I'm pretty undecided. Currently, is still the Slovyansk Front. In yesterday's summary, I have reported, this is also information from yesterday, so it's actually still relevant for this sit rep, that the Ukrainian forces have captured Ozerne and Brusivka, and they have sent recon forces south of Yampil and south of Lyman. And there is also exclamation coming out from War Gonzo, the pro-Russian media, that they are warning of an offensive at the Lyman direction, or Krasny Lyman, or Crispy Lemon. So War Gonzo is now echoing DPA's view that the Ukrainian Lyman offensive is about to happen, and this will draw even more headache for the Russian forces that are in charge of the defensive operation to decide where they should send forces to. And you will later, as I go forward to the Mykolaiv Front, you'll start to see, why the Russians will have trouble as they redeploy their troops towards the Lyman and towards the Izium and the Mykolaiv Front. At the Izium Front, fighting rages over at the Dmitrivka, Vernopilia, and Kopanki region. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported fighting at Vernopilia. However, this is actually in contradiction to the information coming out from pro-Russian sources, because they actually report fighting at Kopanki. They're saying that Ukrainian forces from Dmitrivka and Vernopilia actually launched an attack on Kopanki. Allegedly, there's a lot of foreign mercenaries fighting towards this direction. There's even a war story of sort coming out from Kopanki, where some kind of officer or leader sacrificed himself to help to allow the younger soldiers to actually withdraw, and they actually reported fighting right from the early in the morning, and then it started off with offensive with foreign mercenaries, because they can even hear the foreign languages being spoke on the Ukrainian side. So, but eventually the position seems to be overrun by armor, so by Ukrainian armor. But we are not sure what is the exact situation just yet. But this situation is looking pretty bad for the Russian position here. So this is actually in doubt. I'm not so sure. I don't think the Russians have the capability to launch an offensive at this current juncture in this position. Moving on to still the Izium Front. This is the Izium West. The Ukrainian forces still continues to try to break Zaliman, as they want to get across the river towards Savinci. So however, they have not break through at Zaliman just yet. So this is the Mykolaiv Front. Mykolaiv is actually this city over here, where it has spread across into some kind of a weirdly shaped tentacle creature, or it could be just a plastic bag. So the Ukrainian forces have captured Mykolaiv over the past 24 hours as the Russian forces withdraw from Mykolaiv, according to pro-Russian source Rybar. However, today Rybar actually dispute their own claims, and because they say that there is still no factual evidence that there is a full control of Bakhmut by the Ukrainian forces. So they believe that there can be still contingents of the Russian armed forces still remaining around the city, probably on the eastern side. This is actually kind of corroborated by the fact that the Ukrainians did not launch an attack over at Borodyansk and Mykolaivka. Instead, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the Russian forces have evacuated their wounded personnel and damaged military equipment to the area of Mykolaivka and Borodyansk, which is actually this region. This corroborates with this possibility that the Russians might still be holding a defensive position on the eastern side of Bakhmut. However, as far as I can tell, given the number of troops the Russians have, this is effectively a capture by the Ukrainian forces, since the Russians did not launch counter-offensive to continue to harass Bakhmut forces. So I think the Ukrainians still can be considered as they have captured Bakhmut. So if you haven't watched the other reports that have reported about the Bakhmut front, the Ukrainian forces, after the capture of Volokya, break through, and they actually won't go through the small roads, and they actually stretches all across the entire of this region of Kharkiv, and arrive at Chkalove. They actually got engaged with the defensive forces of the Russian side at Chkalove earlier, and however the Russian defenders are unable to hold back against this mobile force, and they actually the position got captured by the Ukrainian forces. Allegedly, the bridge over here at Chkalove has been destroyed. However, they say that you can still cross on foot. However, they also mentioned that the river is actually very shallow, so they probably don't even need pontoons to actually cross the river. So this is actually a result of the dam getting destroyed. So which is why the river, the height of the river actually fallen by a lot. The Ukrainian forces also seems to have reached Lisna Stinka, which is kind of a weird, smelly name. So at Lisna Stinka, the Ryba pro-Russian source has declared that this location is actually under Russian fire control, along with a number of other locations here, including Chkalove, Sinka, Fedorivka. So they say that these locations are all under Russian fire control. Doesn't really say much other than the Ukrainians actually are present in some way or form in this area. There, however, doesn't seem to have any significant Russian forces around this region. And previously, we have this photo or video coming out from Yasinovate, where the Ukrainians climb up a radio tower and replace the flag from a Russian one to a Ukrainian one. It's still a question. I put a question mark because I wasn't sure how they reached there, and do they actually reach there, or is it just a sleeping agent that was within the town going up to replace the flag due to the lack of Russian forces in the region. And however, there is reports of fighting at Horokhovka, which means that there is a high chance that there is Ukrainian forces that have went through Yasinovate. So they reach here, which means that the forces that was moving towards Chkalove have broken off and traveled through down this road via Bukavka and Popasne and Yasinovate all the way down to Horokhovka. The target again is the bridge. The Ukrainian forces have been targeting all the bridge area. They're trying to focus on all the bridge, and there is fighting reported on the north of the village. You can see the northern outskirts of the village. There is fighting over here. In the latest information I saw is that the Russian forces continue to hold control over this village here. So the Ukrainian forces have not been able to capture the village. However, this bridge is still destroyed, apparently, reportedly, and you can see that this is already 2 bridges getting destroyed. There is reports of fighting at Yasinovato. So Yasinovato, there is fighting currently underway in the area, which means that there is probably some Russian forces around this region that is now being mobilized to fight against this position, or perhaps it was coming from the Izium side. So maybe it's not on the eastern side, maybe it's on the western side. Either way, there is fighting around here. And so important thing to note, why is there an overlapping over here instead of, I didn't pull back the Russian border, is because the Ukrainian forces actually do not have active control over this entire road. They simply use the road and travel all the way down through Yasinovato, put the flag, they go all the way to Horokhovka. Despite this massive offensive, all the claims of a massive captured territory, most of these actions around here, these are all by small mobile forces. These are not massive army units that can hold ground. These are all just mobile forces. They are like raiding parties, if you want. So these raiding forces are just driving quickly all around, creating a intelligence breakdown on the Russian side. So the Russians are unable to tell where the Ukrainian forces are, where they are heading, and where are they exactly are. As a result, if the Russians are to do a counter-offensive, they will have no idea where the Ukrainians are, and which means that at any corner that they travel, they can be ambushed. So this is some kind of a blitzkrieg kind of thing, which actually works. And the Russians actually deployed the exact same tactic in the early days of the war. The first few days of the war, in fact, the first month of the war, this is exactly what the Russians did against the Ukrainians, and this is actually a return of a favor by the Ukrainian forces. Moving up on this side, the tentacle on the north, the Ukrainian forces actually attacked towards Shevchenkove, and when they reached Shevchenkove, they actually left forces here to blockade the southern side of Shevchenkove, and the rest of the forces continue along the highway, and they actually rushed through, going past Zaporizhzhia, which was reported on video, and it was geolocated by the OSIN on Twitter. And they continue to move past towards Hrushivka. And the latest information is that Hrushivka is actually controlled or captured by the Ukrainian forces, and they are already now pushing towards Kupyansk, and fighting is now reported on the outskirts of Kupyansk already. And in fact, in this outskirts, tanks are reported, Ukrainian tanks are reported. So that means the Ukrainian forces have actually rushed tank units, armored units, all the way up to this position. And on top of that, at Kupyansk, recon forces or DRG, deep reconnaissance groups, have been reported operating in Kupyansk. In other countries, we call them commandos. So the commando units are actually or special forces reporting operating in Kupyansk itself already, within the city. So this is going to complicate the defense of Kupyansk, as we say. However, the Russian forces, as expected, have sent reinforcement. They have sent aerial reinforcement through mass airlift of reinforcement through helicopters. Mi-26 is reportedly being used to deliver armored vehicles and personnel to defend the position at Kupyansk. There is also a reinforcement allegedly coming from Belgorod, where there is a significant number of Russian reserves reported by a military correspondent in Kupyansk. So previously, I also mentioned that the likely reinforcement will have to be coming from Belgorod, which is likely to be correct. So, which is why they are all here now, trying to hold this position, because Kupyansk cannot fall. If Kupyansk fall, then the entire Izium front will be totally, not totally, but no, severely cut off from the Russian mainland. There is also Ukrainian shellings on these positions, especially Veliki Bolok. This seems like a major Russian hub that the Ukrainians seems to want to take over. So before I go up so far, I still want to talk about here. So let me see. Did I miss anything first? Okay, so there is also heli reinforcement towards Izum as well, and ground reinforcement also reaching Oskil. So the reinforcement from the Russian side actually goes on on both fronts. On the Izum front, they're reinforcing Izum front and then reinforcing the Kupyansk area. So all the reinforcement is flowing towards this region here, and which is why I was saying that if a crossing appears on Serebryanka, this is going to cause a massive headache for the Russian forces on how should they deploy forces. Please, because you do need to remember that the Ukrainians have numerical advantage in this conflict, because the Russians have not deployed sufficient forces in this conflict. They only treat this as a special military operation. The maximum number of troops the Russians have across the entire fronts in Ukraine is likely not more than 250,000 troops. The Ukrainians probably have between 500 to 700,000 troops in the entire of Ukraine at this moment. So even a push of 100,000 troops in this region is going to collapse the Russian defense. So things are not looking that great at this moment. So now at the Kharkiv front, we can now talk about this. There is this very weird report from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They actually reported fighting. They said they repel enemy attacks, but in the area of Plotske. Oh no, where is this? Where's my Plotske? This is not the correct. Okay, back. So I actually copied the wrong one. This is the source. There is a defending against the enemy offensive Plotske. So Plotske is very out of the way, and I tried to find this Plotske in somewhere nearer the front line. I haven't been able to successfully find it. So I'm not sure what does this exactly mean. Is this a sign that the Ukrainians actually have a penetration from Peshinihi through Primorske all the way up towards Polotske, and actually got into a combat situation near Veliki Belok? I have no idea. So according to a lot of the pro-Russian sources, they say that this is actually a prime target for the Ukrainian forces. They are trying to capture this position, and this position to them is just as important as the position at Kupyansk. So as you can see, all the roads leading towards there. So I will continue to monitor and see what is the actual situation for Plotske, and why is there fighting over there. However, there is some kind of a corroboration of sort or relationship, because there is massive shelling reported at Veliki Bolok or Bosho Bolok. So anyway, this is the situation there. And at the Kharkiv front, we have the traditional bombardments across the entire front line, and there is, however, reported fighting at Udi, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, as well as at Konstantinivka. So these two locations are under fighting, which is kind of weird in a little way, because the Ukrainian Defense Ministry claims Sosnivka, so they also claim Udi. So to have fighting at Konstantinivka, will have to suggest that there is this bulge here that is under Russian control. So anyway, that's the situation here. Otherwise, there is no other significant incidents around this region. And also, okay, if you missed the other video about the front line, the Russian MoD admitting to the presence of this Balaklia offensive. So there is a new front line which I have mapped according to the Russian Ministry of Defense mapping. So I have reported that the Russians have withdrawn to the Chkalove Semenivka line, which is actually this settlement here, and this line all the way to Semenivka. So Semenivka is Semenivka. Where's Semenivka? Oh, here. Sorry, Semenivka is here. So the previous defense line was reportedly should be like this, but Semenivka seems to have been abandoned as well. So based on the latest mapping by the Russian Ministry of Defense, which they did not mention at all in their verbal or textual report, they only show it in their PowerPoint slides map. Now the defensive line is along the river here, from Primorske, so this river here. This is a damped area, and then there's a river, Veliki Bolok River here. So they are holding positions along the river all the way to Mostove, and then they follow this road down to Shevchenkove. So the northern part of this area here, this is the front line, and the front line stretches down this way, following whatever I've drawn, all the way to Borodyaske and Vilkovaka. In their mapping, they also seem to have suggested that they have given up control over Balaklia. Their map did not overlap Balaklia, which means that there is a tacit admission that they have actually lost Balaklia. And similarly, based on the mapping, they also seem to have suggested that they have lost Semenivka, because the front line they drew is actually over here, south of Shevchenkove. So this is also the very few times that you actually see the Russian Ministry of Defense mapping change, because their map seems to not change much at all. For example, there is this bulge here over at the Davydiv Brid Front that is actually not shown on the Russian Ministry of Defense map, which is why the mapping of this change in the mapping is significant, because that's actually them acknowledging that this area is lost, but they did not acknowledge the Davydiv Brid Front breach. So which is why that is important. So anyway, this is the summary for the day of 197 for the 8th of September. Hopefully you get a clearer idea what's happening at this moment. Situation continues to be very, very fluid, very, very dynamic. Things are happening very, very quickly. So by the time you watch this, there's likely to be more news, more things that have happened, more developments. So you don't have to tell me in the comments that I missed out this, missed out that, because as per this report, it is as accurate and as updated as I can as per the start of the recording. So anyway, thank you for watching, and please press the subscribe button, please press the like button. For the many of you that watches my videos but you do not subscribe, you have to subscribe, because only your subscription can support my continued work on this Ukraine war. And I'll see you in the next update.